that we who are strong ought to bear with the failings of the weak and not to please ourselves. So I want to focus on this phrase, not to please ourselves. The Greek is και μη εαυτοίς αρέσκειν. In life, my dear friends, that seems to be how we live our lives. We do what we do, we make the choices in our lives according to that, pleasing ourselves, doing what we like. And that is certainly our right. We have that freedom to live our life that way. But as Christians, we are taught from today's epistle reading, from the letter to the Romans, as well as by life's experience, that if you live life just pleasing yourself, there are a couple of consequences. And I'm not saying this in any way to make anyone feel bad or guilty. I'm saying it by way of the truth, speaking the truth. I want to look at two behaviors, rather three behaviors. Two are negative and one is positive, that relate to this concept. I want to look at how we human beings like to be liked by others. We seek the glory of others. We seek the acceptance of others. We seek the approval of others. And there's a really nice Greek word that encapsulates all this, and that is anthropareskia. And I mentioned this in my Greek sermon as well. Anthropareskia is, I want to be liked. There seems to be this desire, this overt desire, for those of us who haven't even begun our spiritual maturity, our journey of spiritual maturity, to understand that wanting to be liked, while a normal human behavior, is not necessary. It doesn't do us any good. Shh. It doesn't do us any good that we should want to be liked constantly. You see, what we often do is that we conform to the people that we want to like us, irrespective of truth, irrespective of what is the right thing, irrespective of what effect and consequence that will have in our life. We go with the flow. We go with the majority, irrespective of truth. And of course, that serves no one any good. To seek the approval of others is a trap, a spiritual trap. And we can lose ourselves. We can lose track of what is important in our life. That's insofar as seeking approval of others. The next negative behavior is narcissism. So narcissism, based on the ancient Greek myth of Narcissus, a reminder to everyone what that myth entailed. There was a young man who was so handsome that he would get approval. We just mentioned this approval already from so many people, how handsome and so on. And his pride was lifted up and so on. Of course, in ancient times, there were no mirrors per se. He's walking along in nature one day and goes to wash in a river. And before he gets to wash, as he looks into the river, he sees a reflection of himself, pretty much falls in love with what he sees, and slowly just falls into the river and drowns. Ancient Greek myths have these tragic sort of ends. His end was absolute destruction. And the message both from the ancient Greeks, who weren't Christian of course, but as well as our Christian forebears subsequent to antiquity, is that loving yourself can destroy you. And narcissism is indeed identified even in science and in modern psychology as not only a bad thing, but actually a pathology, an aspect of psychopathy. So this is a good thing to consider, that we should not fall into this temptation, that we should love ourselves. Now, this does not necessarily just apply to our looks. It also applies to every aspect of who we are. And in this modern day and age, forget the river. We've got the mirrors, we've got the selfies, and that's all we seem to do. Our whole life revolves around us. Now, the difference between the narcissist and the person who seeks the approval of others is that the narcissist doesn't care for the approval of others necessarily, just loves himself, will just do what expresses his or her love of their self. In fact, they will not care and not have empathy and not have any care whatsoever about the feelings of others. As long as they are uplifted, as long as they are exalted, they are happy. But are they really? Are you really happy if the only thing in your life is thyself? Are you really happy if you don't relate? Are you really happy if you cannot, through your narcissism and your self-centeredness, cannot even transact and have a proper relationship with your loved ones, your family, the people around you? Are the people around you avoiding you? Have you ever asked yourself why? Not because you're not seeking their approval, because we do that well, all of us, but because we don't use the other lens. You see, we're good with the mirror, we're good with the selfie, but we're not good with the microscope. The microscope turning into our heart, with which we can evaluate our true self. Not the self we want to project and portray out there, but our true self, and to actually tackle and identify those things within us that are both bad and good. The narcissist doesn't see any bad in themselves. They cannot see it. They're blind to the bad within their self. They're blind to the behavior of what is going on in their hearts and minds. And so as Christians, we are taught, in order not to please ourselves, the way to do that is to apply that microscope, that evaluation, that self-criticism that is very, very healthy in order to identify true problems and to be able to solve them, because you can't be in denial of those problems. How can you solve problems if you cannot even identify something as a problem? You have to identify it as a problem in the first place. Let's put aside the narcissists. Now, what is the Christian ideal here? Well, we've just said we should not be seeking to please ourselves, so what should we be doing as Christians? The answer comes in the rest of the passage. Let each of us please their neighbour for their good, to edify them. Έκαστος ημών το πλησίον αρεσκέτο εις το αγαθόν προς οικοδομήν. We should be seeking to know what is good for the other, What is good for our neighbour, when we say our neighbour, we don't necessarily mean the person next door, although it includes them too, but it basically means anyone near us, neighbour, nearby, if we can use that play on words. In other words, any fellow human being. We should seek to understand what is good for them. And once you identify what is good for them spiritually, and you try and meet them there, in that place, the ultimate goal is ikodomi, edification. Edification means to build up, to grow. You see, you don't stay stagnant. Edification, edifice being an English word coming from edification. A building, you build up the soul, both yours and the other, together, and you grow spiritually together. You cannot be on your own in this journey, in this spiritual journey. You have to grow with others. How important indeed is this sense of community and communion with each other in the Christian church. And so we've spoken about people who overtly and unnecessarily seek the approval of others. We've spoken of the second category we should be avoiding, and that is narcissism. And the third category, which is what we should be striving for, is to be in God. The Greek for being in the realm of God is entheos. Entheos is where we get the word enthusiasm from. Entheos. God is in you. You are inspired by God, and therefore enthusiasm. Now, there's a difference between being entheos, and that is truly spiritual, and enthusiastic. Historically speaking, we draw the line in that we want to be spiritual, we want to be close to the fire, but we don't want to be in a realm of enthusiasm where we throw out rationality, good sense, common sense, and we just get carried away by that enthusiasm, and we do silly things, extreme things, things that aren't balanced, and that's why the other is important as our sounding board. Any number of heresies of the past have fallen into the category of enthusiastic, which includes speaking in tongues and other manifestations of overt spiritual enthusiasm. And the Bible itself brings them back into the center and into middle ground to say, you need to bring rationality back into the picture and balance things out. Which brings me to the census. So this Tuesday, although I know most of you have already probably filled it in online, that's fine. Now the census technically applies for what our status is this Tuesday, the 10th of August. And I'd like to just address the No Religion campaign, which has spent about $50,000 this week pumping ads into all media, including TV and social media. And just to address their campaign. So the first thing I need to say is that they made a campaign 5 years ago as well. I think they spent much more money last time in 2016. Now, what was the result? They were asking people to tick the no religion box in the religion section. The result was that the no religion percentage of the population increased markedly, increased a lot, but not only at the expense of mainstream religions. So Catholicism copped a big hit, Anglicanism copped a big hit in the last census, and the Orthodox also declined, not as big as the others, but we'll see what happens this time round as well. But also at the expense of other non-religious points of view. It was counterproductive in a way. So what we got was things like humanism, agnosticism, rationalism, and atheism. They all dived. They're non-religious beliefs as well. They're more nuanced in their philosophy. Now, all of these ideas have been around for a couple of hundred years, and they have been in dialogue. There has been largely a friendly dialogue where Christians especially have certainly learnt a lot from these non-religious philosophies, and they've kept us on our feet, I might add. Now, militant atheism is a different question. Militant atheism, there's no nuance. They don't want to have dialogue. They don't want to engage. They're coming from a place of intolerance. They don't want religions, and so that's why their campaign is tick, no religion. That's all it comes down to every 5 years for them. No religion, full stop. There's no debate, no dialogue, no interest in the philosophical debate that would allow them to think a little bit differently. Agnosticism is a good example. We're friendly with agnostics. Whereas an atheist will say, I don't believe in God. Narrowly, just black and white, that's the only question that comes to their head. And I would dare to say that's a fundamentalist position, a non-religious fundamentalist position. When you say, I don't believe in God, that's the only question I'm interested in, and he does not exist, and that's it. No debate, no dialogue. That is fundamentalism on the opposite side of the spectrum. Whereas agnosticism or humanism are open to the possibility, and that's different. Agnosticism says, I'm going to look at this honestly. I know my science, I know my maths, I know my physics, but we can't really know. We don't really know, even from a scientific point of view, what is beyond the realm of the physical and the measurable and the observable, which is what positivism does. Positivism says what I can positively prove, that's all that's true. That's not honest. And agnostics would not subscribe to positivism because they know that, yes, some things are measurable, but some things we haven't measured and we don't know yet. And we may not know. What was the result 5 years ago? As soon as no religion scored 30% in 2016, and this was the first time this grouping overtook any other single group in the religion section, those same activists behaved as though they suddenly got 100%, and that they were suddenly representative of the entire nation, and they immediately demanded policy changes in education, social and economic policy. They don't want religion in common life. We went from allowing people historically to just skip the question, then we went to you can put anything you want in a blank box. Then we went to a special box for no religion at the bottom. Then we went to that box moving to the top of the list and then standing it out. So they're getting their way, and despite this, the militant atheists, the activists, are still crying foul. Last week there was an article in the newspaper, a free pass article, where there once again no dialogue with anyone religious, where they brought it down to a narrow black and white question. Do you believe in God? Well, there it is. Simplify such a big galaxy of a philosophical debate to just one question. So simplistic and so fundamentalist. And that's not what the question in the census asks. The question in the census does not ask, do you believe in God? It asks, what is the person's religion? It just allows for people to know who is who they belong to. They can freely express that belonging and that sense of community to their heritage. There is a bigger picture more than do you believe in God here? And I'm sure, and I did check their YouTube channel, the No Religion campaign last night, they have 25 subscribers, so they're doing really, really well. And I'm sure all 25 of their subscribers will do as they suggest. In the meantime, very simply, of course, you can personally put whatever you like, but if you have a sense of communal unity with Greek Orthodox Christianity or Orthodox Christianity generally, please declare that in the census so that we can be visible to the government, because that definitely has implications in things, in policy decisions and in laws that eventually get made over the next 5 years. Thank you for your patience, and please subscribe, share and like the video.